Jim Lang, our presenter today, is the author of 10 best-selling books that help protect the financial security of IRA and retirement plan owners and their families. His books, including RetireSecure, The Roth Revolution, Beating the New Death Tax, The $214,000 Mistake, How to Double Your Social Security and Maximize Your IRAs, have become classics and are endorsed by some of the country's top experts, including Charles Schwab, the late Larry King, Jane Bryant Quinn, Roger Ibbotson, Ed Slott, Larry Kotlikoff, and Burton Malkiel. His latest best-selling and highly acclaimed books, RetireSecure for Professors and TIAA Participants, and RetireSecure for Parents of a Child with a Disability, the hardcover editions of which are available as bonuses at today's workshop. And I encourage anyone who has not already taken advantage of those offers to grab a copy of one or both at the end of this session. They'll be on the tables in the hallway. Jim predicted that legislation designed to accelerate the taxation of inherited IRAs and retirement plans was coming more than 6 years before the Secure Act enshrined it as the law of the land. Jim had the foresight that almost no other retirement and estate planning experts had. He understood that the end of preferential tax treatment for inherited IRAs and retirement plans wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And instead of sitting around and waiting to find out when it might happen, Jim and our team of talented CPAs hit the ground running. They used their expertise to develop practical solutions that our clients and other retirement plan owners would be able to use to defend their wealth and their financial legacies against the inevitable. And thanks to that combination of expertise and foresight, Jim and our team of tax, estate, and financial planning professionals have already helped hundreds of our clients implement those strategies as part of their holistic financial master plans. And we'll get a closer look at several of those same strategies this morning. But that foresight that Jim had about the original Secure Act and the preemptive strategic planning solutions that he and our team developed in response, that's just one example of the kind of work that they've been doing for our clients on a daily basis for decades. He and our expert CPAs are always putting their experience to work to ensure that our clients and their families get the most out of what they've got. And today's event will be an excellent resource for anyone and everyone in search of great information and strategies for retirement and estate planning. Jim is a nationally recognized IRA, Roth IRA, and 401k expert whose tax and estate planning strategies have been featured in the Wall Street Journal 36 times. His insights have been featured in numerous other publications, including Newsweek, Forbes, Reader's Digest, Bottom Line, and Kiplinger's. He's a paid contributor to Forbes.com. His peer-reviewed articles have appeared in Trust and Estates Magazine, Financial Planning, The Tax Advisor, and the Journal of Retirement Planning. Our accounting firm prepares 760 tax returns every year, and in conjunction with our money management partners, our RIA oversees over $900 million in assets under management. As a member of the team here at Lang, I've had a really unique opportunity to get a behind-the-scenes look to see just how much Jim cares about putting great information into these presentations, and I have to tell you, he was actually packing new information into this very session last night. So I think you're really going to enjoy this presentation and be able to implement some of the strategies, whether you decide to work with us or not. So without further ado from me, Jim Lang.
I was cycling down a trail with a couple of my friends in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And the trail took us through an abandoned, darkened tunnel. And there was a pothole that I missed. And I went down hard. And I didn't feel that bad, but when I got up, I couldn't walk. I thought, oh no, what's wrong? So anyway, I was rushed to the local hospital, and they did an x-ray. Bad news, you have a broken hip. But the good news was and it needed surgery. The good news was they happened to have a surgeon who was on call, and they could do the surgery immediately. And I asked the nurse, or not the surgeon, but I asked the nurse, would it be bad for me if I waited till tomorrow to get this surgery? She said, well, you'll have a very unpleasant night, but no, it won't make any long-term difference. And I thought about it. Do I want a general surgeon who's working in a local hospital in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for this very important operation, or do I want to be transported to Pittsburgh and have a specialist do the operation? And that evening, we were able to find not only a specialist in broken hips, but a specialist in broken hip trauma, because this wasn't a gradual thing. And I got the surgery. Then I put together a team of a nutritionist who told me things that were counterproductive. You know, my thinking was, oh, I'm going to get fat because I'm sitting around. She said, no, eat. You have to feed it and get it better. I had an acupuncturist. I had a physical therapist. And when I went to see the surgery for, the post-surgery review, and I was in my 50s at the time, he said, that's the fastest recovery I've ever seen. So why am I starting like this? Sometimes if you have a specialty situation, and typically for most of the people here, it's people who have IRAs and retirement plans and 401ks and 403bs, and that actually might make up the majority of your wealth. You don't go to a generalist, you go to a specialist. And I think that you're getting information from the right source, because this is my area of passion where I've been at the forefront for many, many years. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the problem. So what is the problem that probably most of you face? It's going to be income taxes. Of course, we all have many problems, but the one that's common to most of us is facing this enormous income taxes on our IRA, 401k, 403b, SEP, KEO, etc., because most of that money has not yet been taxed. This is going to happen while you're alive, and particularly after your minimum required distribution kicks in. And then after you die, your legacy, short of taking, proactive steps, is just going to be decimated, not by federal estate tax, but by federal income tax. So that is the issue that most of us face, and it makes a huge difference, and it's even worse after the Secure Act. So instead of keeping you in suspense for the whole 2 hours, I'll tell you what a very likely strategy that is going to help you enormously and help your family, maybe even more than you personally. And that is most likely a series, not just one, but a series of strategically placed and planned Roth IRA conversions. So that's kind of, you already know where I'm headed. For most people, they spend so much time on things that they can't control. Gee, how should I invest? Should I buy this stock or that stock? Should I buy this mutual fund or that mutual fund? And I'm not saying that that's not important, but I'm saying that those are, particularly if you're talking about individual securities, you can't control the market. You can't control if IBM is going to go up or down, or AT&T is going to go up or down, or anything else. So instead of spending all this time on things that you can't control and probably can't even predict, why not spend time on things that you can control and things that you can reasonably predict? So to me, that makes a lot more sense, to actually work on things that you can control. Does that make sense to? All right. So, and Roth IRA conversions is likely going to be one of those things that you can control that will have a huge impact on you and your family. So here's the deal with IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, SEPs, etc. And some of the money came from your pocket, some of the money came from your employer's pocket. But what all that money has in common is that nobody has yet paid income taxes on that money. So someday, unless you leave it to charity, someday somebody's going to pay tax on it. All right? Now, I'm known for don't pay taxes now, pay taxes later. And then somebody says, well, what about the Roth? Well, there's exceptions. And then we're even going to talk about an exception to the exception. But that's the issue. So who here thinks that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to present, I'm going to talk about the likely future tax changes and what the impact on that, but just for the general environment and for when I run the numbers, which I do all the time, both in practice and for the purpose of this session, I typically just say, okay, I'm going to assume that we're going to have steady tax rates from here to the long run. So if you had, let's say, if you had to predict yourself, all right, and let's say that there's three possibilities. Number one, and I'm talking about the long run, not the short run, although potentially the short run too. One, you think taxes are going to go up over time. Two, taxes are going to stay the same. Or three, taxes are going to go down over time. Who thinks that taxes will likely go down over time? Usually I get one person. Nobody. Who thinks that they're more or less going to be the same? Wow. Oh, we got one guy. He says the same. And who thinks they're going to go up over time? All right. If you are right, that means that all the benefits that I'm going to be talking about for the Roth are going to be underestimated. Because for the purposes of my projections, I'm just assuming a steady tax rate. If the rates are actually going to go up, then that is going to be even more beneficial than the numbers that I'm going to be presenting. The other thing that we have to worry about, and a couple people have seen me in the past, and they say, well, what are some of the things that are different? And one of the things that's really different is the Secure Act. I would call it the IRA and Retirement Plan Owners Penalty Act, because that's what it really is. And I happen to hate the Secure Act because basically what the Secure Act says is that your heirs, most likely your kids, are going to have to pay income taxes on these 401ks, 403bs, SEPs, IRAs, etc., within 10 years of your death. Where the old rule was they could stretch it out and pay taxes over their lifetime. And to me, I really resent it because the deal all along was, okay, we're going to give you favorable tax treatment if you put money in your retirement plan. We're going to let you deduct it. Now we're going to have to take some money out, after back then 70 and a half. But that was okay because you were paying taxes later. And then after you died, your kids could pay taxes later over their entire lives. So most of you said, oh, gee, if you're going to give me this great tax break, I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to max out as much as I can afford into my 401ks, IRAs, etc. And then late in the game, the government decides, no, we changed our minds. We're going to make your kids pay taxes in 10 years after your death, which is going to make just this massive income tax acceleration, which is just miserable. So to me, one of the things that I want to do is I want to help defend not only you while you're alive, but then also your heirs after you're gone. And if we're not proactive, particularly if we have large IRAs, it's just going to be, your legacy is going to be decimated. Unless you are proactive. So that's why you're here today. Many of the concepts that we're going to be talking about have been peer reviewed. So I wrote the first peer review article on Roth IRA conversions in the country. And that, so for example, if you're a physician and you have an idea for a new drug or whatever it is, you go to a peer review journal like the New England School Journal of Medicine or somebody like that, and you say, hey, I have this idea for an article. If I do the article, will you publish it and first have it reviewed by a whole team of doctors, and then eventually publish it. And they say, well, if it passes muster, yes. Well, we have the same thing in the financial world. And if you're like a geeky type CPA, you typically read a magazine called The Tax Advisor. And that's peer reviewed. And when you submit an article as a tax advisor, you not only have to submit the article, but you have to submit all of your spreadsheets and how you got your thing. And they have a bunch of reviewers who just want to tear your head off. That's how I think they genuinely enjoy finding mistakes and things like that. In this case, the peer reviewers not only didn't correct things, but they added me to emphasize some of the things that we're also going to be talking about today, but actually in the second session on the best estate plan. I didn't expect the CPA journal to really pick up on the best estate plan. I thought that would be more in a legal journal. We're going to talk about something called the secret, and that's really critical to understand. And we'll get into some of the math. Some of you have heard me before, and guess what? I was talking about it in 1998, and I've been talking about it ever since, and I will probably keep talking about it for probably, 10 more years, maybe even longer. It's critical. We're going to be talking about the Secure Act, and then we're going to be talking about Secure Act 2.0, which is, came after the Secure Act. The other thing is we're going to be talking about some advanced techniques. Some of the advanced techniques are as a result of tax changes, and very, very frankly, some of them are things that I thought of that I could have done 20 years ago, but I didn't think of it 20 years ago, but I've thought about it since, and it can save people a lot of money. So I see a number of you who I've seen for years, you'll hear this for the first time. The other thing we're going to talk about, I said, that my traditional motto was pay taxes later. Then it became pay taxes later except the Roth. Now we're going to find another exception of pay taxes later except the Roth, and then we're going to talk about that exception also. All right, so let's go to the essence of a Roth IRA conversion. So what you're doing is you're taking a chunk of money, IRA, 401k, 403b, etc., that has not yet been taxed, and you're paying taxes on it now. And the money that then after you pay the taxes on that money in effect went through a conversion from a traditional IRA, 401k, etc., which I'll mainly just abbreviate by calling it an IRA, to a Roth IRA. Okay? And as a result, that Roth IRA grows income tax-free. There's no minimum required distributions on it. And even after you die, there's no minimum required distributions for your spouse. And even after you and your spouse die, yes, your kids will have a minimum required, they'll have to eventually take it out, and under the Secure Act in 10 years, but they get an additional 10 years of tax-free growth. All right, but here's the secret. So I'm going to use Joe as an example, all right? So let's say that I have $1 million in my IRA, and that's all I have. And Joe has $900,000, but he doesn't have an IRA. He has just plain old after-tax dollars. Well, I have more money than Joe, right? I have $1 million. He only has $900,000. But let's say that we both want to go out and buy something. Well, I have to cash in my IRA. Let's just keep it simple, 24%. So after I pay taxes, I only have $760,000. But Joe has $900,000. So even though before we cash it in, I have more money than Joe, he has more purchasing power. Is everybody with me so far? This is a critical concept. So would you rather have $900,000 of after-tax dollars or $1 million in an IRA? You'd rather have $900,000 in after-tax. So what I want to do is I'm going to propose that we change our measurement tool for money. Typically, we think of money as total dollars. I want to change our measurement tool to purchasing power. Is everybody cool with that? All right, that's really important. And by the way, if you get that, you're already ahead of most of the people, including a lot of the quote so-called experts. That we're going to measure in purchasing power. Okay, so I'll give you a choice, Joe. Do you want to be Mr. Status Quo or do you want to be Mr. Roth Conversion? All right, so Joe's going to pick Roth Conversion. All right, so both Joe and I, in this example, have $100,000, all right, in an IRA. And we each have $24,000 outside the IRA, so measured in total dollars, we have $124,000, okay? Now let's use our new measurement tool, which is purchasing power. So cash in our $100,000 IRA, let's just keep it simple, 24% tax rate. In this example, I conveniently have $24,000 outside the IRA to pay the taxes on cashing in the IRA. So, but now I don't have the $24,000 anymore. So I have $100,000 of purchasing power, okay? Both Joe and I have that. Now what Joe's going to do is he's going to do a Roth IRA conversion. So he starts with this $100,000. Now he doesn't have the $24,000 anymore because he's using that to pay the tax. So he has $100,000 in a Roth now, but he doesn't have his $24,000 anymore. How much tax do you have to pay when you cash in your Roth? Zero. Guess what? We have the same purchasing power on day one. This is so important to understand. Does everybody get this? I really want you to get this. Measured in purchasing power, using a simple assumption, we break even on a Roth IRA conversion on day one. So many of the quote so-called experts, they keep measuring in total dollars. If you measure in total dollars, you come to a completely different conclusion. If you measure in total dollars, you would find that Roth IRA conversions might be good for young people because they have a lot of years to invest so that the tax-free growth will overcome the $24,000 that they had to pay in taxes, but it wouldn't be good for older people because they don't have enough of a life expectancy for the Roth IRA, for the growth of the tax-free Roth IRA to overcome the $24,000. So they come to the conclusion, young people make a Roth, old people don't. But I would challenge their assumption and their measurement tool because they're using total dollars, where if they measure in purchasing power, you break even on day one. And that's really critical to understand.
In your example, I completely see the purchasing power. One other subtlety that I was really not aware of is the fact that you can use money outside of your IRA to pay the tax, which also then allows you to maintain the level of your IRA to earn tax-free returns.
Mm-hmm. So the comment is, gee, I really wasn't thinking about using money outside the IRA to pay the tax on the IRA. I'll add to that, if you do the math, if you don't have the money to pay the taxes from outside the IRA, subject to a couple exceptions, it's actually a break-even over time. Well, I don't want to do a Roth IRA conversion to break even over time. I only want to do it if it is better. I have a few more questions. Go ahead.
Don't you have to also consider the tax rate that you're in at the time? So, like, if you're an older person, but you're still working, would you necessarily want to do a Roth IRA conversion when your income bracket is much higher, you're still working, or should you wait to retire and your income is much lower, so you'd be in a lower bracket?
All right, so let me understand that. Right now you're working, your income tax bracket is here. Then you're going to retire, and then your income tax bracket is here. Then you'll go along for a while, and then when you hit, Social Security and minimum required distribution, your income will be up here. Should you do a Roth IRA conversion down here and wait? Yes. that's the simple one. Both of them.
The assumption that your income is going to go down when you retire is not always true.
Oh, so the comment is your income might not go down. Do you think it would be helpful then to do projections to see what your income really is going to be? Would that be helpful? Or do you think we should just wing it?
My personal experience is that after my retirement, my income has actually gone up.
Well, that is not uncommon.
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to have to cut it off. And go ahead.
You did use taxable money to pay your taxes. What's the break-even time period?
Well, the break-even time period, if you measure in purchasing power, is day one.
I say if you use taxable money to pay the taxes.
Well, here I am using taxable money. You mean? Oh, I'm sorry. You're using the IRA. Theoretically, it's still day one. It doesn't change. Now you'll avoid minimum required distribution. There's some estate tax advantages, but subject to exception, and there are exceptions. I'm not in that. You guys are on step 5, 6. Right now, I'm still on step 1. All right. So I'm going to move on if that's okay, because we have to get the basics right. By the way, we're getting into some advanced stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to keep going with this. I like questions, but not right now. So we're going to measure in purchasing power, and we're going to use and again, assuming the same tax rate, we have a break even on day one. Okay, but I'm not happy with a break even in the long run because I don't want to have clients and people write big checks to the IRS and not be better off. All right, so what we like to do, we call it running the numbers. One of our CPAs doesn't like that. He says, a monkey can run numbers. We're doing high-level income tax projections. And he's right, but people, if I say, oh, we do sophisticated, detailed spreadsheet analysis using some of the best quantitative, no. We run the numbers. People run the numbers. All right, so we're going to run the numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare Joe, who did his Roth conversion, or even a series of Roth conversions, and me, who I'm going to be Mr. Status Quo in this one. Okay? So we're going to say, okay, if Joe does his conversion, where will he be, say, in 20 years, knowing that he's not getting income on his $24,000 anymore, but we're going to measure in purchasing power, versus me, who does nothing. All right? Well, would it be helpful? Is there anybody here who would admit that they're pretty good quantitatively? Maybe you're an engineer, maybe you were good in math, maybe you do some computer science. I know there's a lot of you, but will anybody admit it? Okay, a couple people admit it. I want to satisfy you quantitative types. Would it be helpful if we did that kind of projection? And would it be even more meaningful if those projections were peer-reviewed by the American Institute of CPAs? Okay, all right, so, well, guess what? We did that. And the difference was life-changing. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is during your lifetime. Okay? You yourself, forget about your kids for the moment. You yourself, measured in purchasing power, are better off. Excuse me. Is that better? Okay. You yourself are better off by hundreds of thousands of dollars measured in purchasing power. All right. Well, That's pretty good. And by the way, I'm also adjusting for inflation. If I didn't adjust for inflation, it would be much bigger. So what if Joe and I, let's say we're the same age, we do these conversions, same assumptions, same money, same income tax, same investment rate, same everything. We both die, we both leave it to our kids are the same age, blah, blah, blah. Let's compare Joe's kids over their lifetime versus my kids over my lifetime. Well, my kid runs out of money. Joe's kid has $1.5 million in today's dollars by doing a series of Roth IRA conversions. How hard did you have to work to accumulate $1.5 million compared to, just taking the appropriate financial steps? And that is a very real difference. All right, so the other way to look at it is, let's say that you were a farmer and you had two choices. One, you could deduct the cost of the seed, plant it, and then when the harvest comes, you have to pay tax on the harvest. Or you can not pay taxes on the seed, not get a deduction for the seed, but when the harvest comes, it's tax-free. So kind of intuitively, you want that tax-free growth. Does that make sense? Okay, now we'll take a question or two.
What would prevent you from using after-tax dollars for your contribution to your 403B? Then you could put that into a Roth later on. Instead of taking that tax deduction.
So is your question basic?
Your contribution.
Okay, so up to now, I've only been talking about Roth conversion. And this gentleman's saying, well, why not get started earlier and do a Roth contribution instead of a traditional contribution? And the answer is there is no good reason not to, unless you're like her. See, she's at her highest bracket now, and let's say that she has a 401k at work, and let's even say that that 401k has a Roth option. And I'm saying, without knowing anything more, no, don't even do the Roth 401k now. Wait till you retire and your bracket's down here, do the Roth conversion down here. Then, like Pothin says, hey, my income tax bracket's higher than when I was working. Then, when your bracket's up here, now you have all your Roth. But you get it.
I followed your advice for a number of years and actually converted quite a bit of IRA to Roth IRA.
Okay.
The last 3 or 4 years, I did not convert anymore because if you go to a 35% in a tax bracket, is it advisable to convert it?
Oh, so what you're saying is, gee, it doesn't make sense to convert every year no matter what, but it's good to convert based on current tax bracket. Oh, good idea. I never thought of that. No, he and I go way back, so I'm allowed to kid him.
I didn't follow your advice on that.
What is the definition of old age? When are you too old to convert into Roth?
When are you too old? I would say that it depends more on your tax bracket and your situation. If you're at the maximum tax bracket now, and you're always going to be, and your kids are always going to be, then you should convert everything tomorrow. So, most of us might have $1 million, $2 million, maybe few people might have 5 or 10 million. Well, I do work with people who have a lot more, and one of my clients is, very big shot, actually former tax partner, and he knew. So right now we're only talking about income taxes, okay? But let's talk about transfer taxes, and even if you're not subject to federal estate or transfer tax, most of us are Pennsylvania. By the way, are you guys Pennsylvania residents? Okay. Guess what? If we don't make the conversion, we're paying tax, and let's add a couple of zeros, on $1.24 million. If you do the Roth, even though you have the same purchasing power, you just save PA inheritance tax on, $240,000 plus the growth. So that's a bonus that's not even included in the benefits here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my own Roth IRA conversion story. All right, so in 1998, our office suffered a devastating fire. A few of you actually still remember me back then. Our office was situated in the business district in Squirrel Hill, and we were above a pizza shop, and they were not real tight on their electrical inspections, etc. And there was an electrical fire from the pizza oven, and the fire basically wiped out my office. It was February 16th, 1998, the beginning of tax season. I get a call at 2 in the morning. Oh, your business is on fire. Oh no! So I go out there. The agent was there. I'm looking at the flames, and I'm thinking, hey, we have to get in. We have to get to work. And I said, do you have any more space? He says, yeah, there's an office down the street. And I said, can I see it? Just like 2 in the morning, because I'm not going to put out the fire. He says, well, I have to deal with it. I said, why don't you just give me the keys? So he goes to his office, gives me the keys. I go down there. And interestingly, it was the same owner. And I looked at the space, and I came back to him, and I said, well, how much do you want for it? He said, same rent. I said, done. That was the fastest negotiation we ever had. All right, but think about it. I had all these massive expenses. I had to get new computers, and I had to move, and I had all these expenses. And I was well insured, but I didn't get reimbursed for the insurance till the next year. So just like this woman, my income was here. Then for that 1 year, it was way down. And then afterwards, it went back up to normal. In fact, I got a bump when I got the insurance check. Well, I was writing the article on Roth IRA conversions at the time. And I said to my wife, and she's a very smart woman. She has a master's degree in electrical engineering from Carnegie Mellon, and she does not like paying taxes. And I said to her, and at the time, we were in our 40s, and we only had $250,000 of traditional 401k and IRAs and stuff. And I said, I think we should convert the entire amount. And she said, well, that's crazy. We're going to have to pay like $100,000 in tax or something like that. And I said, well, let's do the math. And back then, they didn't have all the fancy software they had. We used Excel. But I satisfied her, yes, we should convert the entire amount. And we did. And our daughter's going to be way over $1 million better off because we did that. All right? So that was huge. And one of the writers for Forbes magazine, she's now with the Wall Street Journal, she read one of my pieces and she was pretty fascinated because normally in Forbes, they just talk about investments and stuff. And she read about that, and the journalists like stories. They don't like just hard numbers. And they like the story of my daughter, so they actually ran a featured article in Forbes magazine, which was a big deal. I met Steve Forbes. He signed it. He wrote, good writing. I don't know if he read it or not, but I think he did, actually. And by the way, that's in one of your handouts. And this was back in 2019, and the benefits are even more now. So just like we said for this woman, the classic time to convert is not up here, but between retirement and minimum required distribution and Social Security. And I know for a few of you, well, too late. But usually, even though that's the ideal time to convert, now it's become so important to convert that we're finding that it might make sense to convert if you're still working. So let's say instead of in your case, I'm sorry, your name? Kathy? All right. So in Kathy's case, let's say that she's 65, although she looks a lot younger, doesn't she? Certainly a lot younger than her husband. But let's say that she's 65 and she's going to retire next year, and she makes all the money. He never really made it. She's 65, she's at the top tax bracket, but next year she's going to convert. Well, that's pretty easy. She should wait until she retires. But what if she's 65 and she says, hey, I want to work till I'm 75? Well, you might, even at 75, when your minimum required distribution comes in, you might be like Pothen, who's in the same or even a higher bracket. So that's why you can't say, oh, okay, right after you retire, right before. Everything is so individual, and it just, everybody's a snowflake, right? We're all different. Doesn't mean we don't have a lot in common. It still has to be cold for there to be snow, but that's why there isn't a cookie cutter easy thing. And these software, programs that, on the internet, they don't take that into consideration, or even if they do, they sometimes use the wrong purchasing. They use total dollars instead of purchasing power. So that frankly, that makes my job harder. But it also, then I can really help people. Okay, and sometimes it might make sense to convert, for your kid, they should probably always put money in Roths because they have such a long time horizon. And they're going to be working for a lot of years, and probably they're not going to go into their retirement plan the year after they retire because they probably have some savings. Or sometimes, maybe like Pothen, now he found, oh gee, I'm now in a high bracket that it doesn't make sense to convert anymore, but maybe some people, it still makes sense to convert even after they're retired, even after they're taking Social Security. Yes?
Question. Jim, is there an age limit as to what person may take when they make a lot?
So the question is there an age limit? And not only is there not an age limit, we have actually done deathbed Roth IRA conversions.
So one can would be forced to take RMDs, but at the same time.
They can make conversions. We literally have done Roth IRA conversions with somebody in the hospital. Wait, hold on, sign this. Okay, you can die. But we saved a ton of money for that family. Yes. Now, by the way, a lot of times we do this for people maybe in their 80s and 90s that might have a, 3-year, 5-year life expectancy. But we have literally done it with terminally ill folks.
Can your children, after you die, convert IRAs to Roth?
Can your children convert IRAs to a Roth? Basically, I'll rephrase, can your children make an inherited IRA Roth conversion? The answer is no, but they are allowed to make an inherited 401k conversion after you die. Okay? So let's say that you're in the top tax bracket and your kid's in the lowest tax bracket. And let's say that you're close to death. Do you want to make a conversion at 35% so your kid can get tax-free at 12%? Doesn't sound good to me. What if you had your own business, or we even set something up, and we take your IRA, we roll it into a 401k, then you die, so your kid inherits it, he's starting in the 12% bracket, he makes a Roth conversion of an inherited 401k. That's, by the way, coming up in the advanced section. No, you can't do it for an inherited IRA, but you can do it for an inherited 403B or 401k if the plan allows for the conversion. So you need the IRS to allow it, and you need the plan document. And most of you, if you are in corporate America, most of your 401ks will not allow it, which means that we have to have a specialized 401k for you, which we've done for folks. And
is there any disadvantage of converting an IRA to a 401k?
Is there any disadvantage? No. The problem with going from IRA to 401k is if if you're retired, which is when most of these people do it, you can't set up a 401k unless you have earned income. Okay, so you need some earned income. So here's what I want you to do. In your post-retirement days, I want you to cut Joe's lawn and charge him for it. All right, now you have some earned income. You can set up your 401k, go from your IRA to your 401k. But you see what I'm trying to get at. I need you to have some earned income. That's the biggest problem. But for a lot of you, you do a little consulting, have your kids pay you for all the advice that you give them. Or better yet, have them pay you not to give them advice. That might work better. That would work a lot better with me. Okay, so we talked about, practically all of us agree taxes are going up in the long run. Well, what about the short run? There was a big tax cut in the year 2017. It was called the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. And basically, in order to balance the budget, it wasn't allowed to be permanent. So they said it's going to be temporary. And when does it end? In 2026. So let's imagine that we have a dysfunctional government in 2026, and they can't pass anything. They can't pass a raise, they can't pass a cut, they can't pass anything. Guess what happens? Your rates are going to go way up. All right? And that has an implication for the short run, because if your tax rates are going to go up, that means Roth IRA conversions are going to be even more beneficial, and you're better off making it while the rates are still lower. So let's assume, for discussion's sake, right now, that maybe your income is even just say $100,000. If you do a Roth IRA conversion, I'm oversimplifying, but you do a Roth IRA conversion of $283,000, you're still in the 24% bracket. Well, for that same bracket, that same income, you would be in the 33% tax bracket in 2026. That's a pretty big difference between 24 and 33%. So there is some immediacy to consider these Roth, conversions. Traditionally, I'm usually, and by the way, I have a reputation. Oh, Jim Lang, he loves Roth IRA conversions. You go see Jim Lang, he's going to try to talk into these Roth conversions. I'll tell you what I think is more accurate. Jim Lang and his team love to run the numbers, and they like to make recommendations consistent with your values to save the most taxes. And in most situations, at some point, maybe not now like you, maybe later, it will make sense to do a series of Roth conversions. But they do the math, and then they make recommendations based on the math. All right? But anyway, and here's an issue that I keep running into, and I'll probably keep running into it. Oh, gee, my CPA says that Roth IRA conversions aren't good. My CPA, my friend, that's even worse, my friend says Roth IRA conversions will actually hurt me. Why should I pay the taxes now? My answer, of course, is, can I please see the peer-reviewed article that your CPA wrote? Well, he never wrote one. Oh, okay, well, can I see his spreadsheet measured in purchasing power? Well, they can't come up with it because it doesn't exist. And here's my point. This is not a matter of opinion. Okay? Kathy likes Whitney Houston. I like Barbara Streisand. Can we prove which one is the better singer? No, that's a matter of opinion. All right? Joe doing a Roth conversion versus me not doing a Roth conversion, that's a matter, I gave you math, I didn't give you opinion, and I even gave you peer-reviewed math. So, there's touchy-feely stuff in the world, but how much and when to convert is a matter of math. Oh, Jim, I'm different because of blah, blah, blah. Okay, wait, hang on. Well, if you're different, then basically that means, oh, okay, then we have to change the assumptions for running the numbers. Kathy's going to work retire next year. Joe's going to work another 5 years. They each have the same amount of money. Well, we have to change the assumptions. Joe's going to keep working. So we change the assumptions, but the math is the math. Okay? And that's really important because, I even have I have one guy, he's a good friend. And he's in that in-between stage. He's retired from his job, and he's headed for minimum required distribution. And I desperately want him to hold off on his Social Security, and I want him to do a series of Roth conversions. And I gave him my books, and I gave him the math, and he's an engineer. He's pretty bright. Oh, no, but my situation's different. What's so different? Well, my wife is still working. Well, okay, fine. We put that in the assumptions. Can't get through. Can't get through. And the best thing that you can do if you can't get through is give up and say thank you. It's just hopeless. All right, now.
If I have 1.2 million and she has got 1 million before conversion, why do you think purchasing power is same as hers and mine?
You have 1.2 in an IRA?
Yeah.
And she has $1 million?
Yeah.
Because
total assets I'm talking about now. Let's say 100.
I want to measure in purchasing power.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to move on.
How is the purchasing power is same if the dollar amount's different?
All right, I have to move on. I'm sorry. Okay, so what I think one of the big mistakes, and by the way, we're going to have a whole session. It's a new session, by the way, of some of the most common, big-time mistakes that people make. That's what the third session is. I've been doing this, I hate to say it, but for more than 40 years. So I've seen a few things, and I see what so many people have done, and I don't want you to do those. I really don't. I really do care. I mean, I meet people on the streets, and I want you to do a Roth. You told me your situation. I have a certain view of the world, and I kind of want the world to conform to my view. I don't want to change my thinking because of the world, which I think is still math. And by the way, when I'm skipping over some of these slides, it's because I already talked about them. I sometimes forget what's on the slides. But it's not like you're missing anything. But the low-hanging fruit for a lot of people are Roth conversions. And the methodology, yes, the assumptions, the tax rates, et cetera, have changed since 1998. The methodology is the same. Okay, now, let's pick on Joe for a minute. Joe, are you a single guy or are you married? All right, so Joe's married. And let's say his income tax bracket is here. Now let's say that either he or his wife die, and let's say they're going to, the survivor's going to have more or less the same income. Maybe their income goes down a little bit by social, because they get one Social Security instead of two. But basically, the bracket is going to go up here, right? Because single brackets are a lot higher than married brackets. Maybe we should do it while both spouses are alive. Okay? A lot of times people don't even think of that. And it's math. Because the truth is, people always talk about simultaneous death. In the real world, typically, you have the first spouse die, and then there's a number of years, and then the second spouse dies. So I want to do the conversion before anybody dies. Okay? Again, a matter of math. Okay. The Secure Act, which is really miserable. In the old days, before 2020, if you died and you left your money to your kid could stretch the inherited IRA over their lifetime. Given certain reasonable assumptions, your kid would be here when your kid is 86. That's $2 million. Under the Secure Act, same assumptions, your kid has $0. This is not a little deal. This is the difference between your kid being rich and broke. That's what the law is, subject to exception. So this is, our problem. The exceptions are your spouse, If you have a child with a disability, my daughter has a disability. She has dysautonomia. She will never be able to work. She, by the way, that's one of the exceptions. So Joe and I die with the same amount of money. We leave it to our kids. My daughter will be here. His kid will be here. On the other hand, my daughter can never work. So, by the way, that was my challenge. How do I provide my daughter, the nature of her disability will not likely significantly have an impact on her life expectancy. All right, so she's, even forgetting future technology, she is likely to survive me by 40 years. So how do I provide, not for me, my wife, and her, not only now, but then for 40 years after she's gone, after my wife and I are gone? I figured it out. I got a couple co-authors, and we wrote what I humbly believe is the best book for parents of a child with a disability. And I was in the perfect position to write that book because I've been doing this stuff, because all my old calculations, all the calculations that I did before 2020, they were all up here. Because back then, everybody could stretch it. So for them, Roth IRA conversions are even more important. Okay, so spouse, disability, there are a number of others that we are not going to cover today. So the status quo is that your income on the inherited IRA and 401k is going to be taxed to your kids. They're going to have to, depending on when you die, take it out in 10 years or even shorter. With the Roth, there is no income tax at death, and there's no income tax for 10 years. Okay, so a lot of times people say, well, gee, Jim, if I do a Roth IRA conversion, not only am I going to bump my income up, but I'm going to bump up my premium on Medicare Part B. I bet you didn't think of that, did you? Well, guess what? I did. We have a whole chapter just on that. But here's the thing. If you do a Roth conversion and it bumps your income up and it increases your Medicare Part B premium, yes, in the short run, you're going to have a higher Medicare Part B premium, which I'll say is the same as taxes. But in the long run, your minimum required distribution is going to go down, meaning your income is going to go down, meaning your tax is going to go down. So you don't want to be too short-sighted about that. Okay, and again, I'm just skipping over things that I am explaining. And the best answer, of course, the best answer for most questions is run the numbers. I'm almost like, if we really want to be precise about it. But the mindset is different. In the old days, oh, Roth's going to be unbelievable. You're going to save so much money for your kids and your grandkids. It's going to be great. Now it's, if you don't do the Roth, you're going to get murdered. So now we're playing defense. Before we were playing offense. Okay, well, I've tried during the first half to talk about what I consider some of the basic concepts. All right, now we're in the advanced class now. Okay. Does anybody have any after-tax dollars inside their IRA? Maybe that's too personal. I will assume that many of you have after-tax dollars inside your IRA or 401k. All right. What that is money that you contributed and you didn't get a tax deduction for it. So that's considered, and that's the same as a non-deductible IRA. So many of you have after-tax dollars inside your IRA or 401k. Let's just start with the 401k. Wouldn't it be cool to convert the after-tax dollars inside your 401k to a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA without having to pay the tax? Because the growth on the after-tax dollars of a 401k or of a non-deductible 401k or a non-deductible IRA is taxable. Wouldn't it be cool to stop the taxation on the growth of that money and have it grow tax-free without having to pay any tax. All right? So this is an advanced technique. Well, guess what? A lot of times you can. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes, and we can thank IRS Notice 2014-54, if you have after-tax dollars and pre-tax dollars, that is traditional 401k and after-tax 401k in your retirement plan, at retirement, you can say to the plan administrator, please send my after-tax dollars to a Roth, and please spend my IRA dollars to a traditional IRA. So in effect, you've done a Roth IRA conversion of the after-tax dollars for free. And even if you only have, say, $50,000, it doesn't sound like that much or that important. But if you run that for 40 years, hey, Jim, I'm not going to live 40 years. Okay, well, your kids are. They can be hundreds of thousands of dollars better off. How much money did it cost you out of pocket? 0. Is that pretty cool? Cost you 0. And by the way, we're running a little short in time, so I'm going to be a little bit stingier about questions. Another technique. So let's say that you have, let's say it's too late, all right? And you have an IRA, and this much of the IRA is after tax, and this is pre-tax, all right? What you'd like to do is you'd like to make a conversion of the after tax and not pay the tax, just like we just did. But unfortunately, at this point, since it's all in an IRA, and some of you might follow a guy named Ed Slott, and he talks about coffee and the cream, and it's already mixed together, because it's all together. Is there a way that we can separate the cream from the coffee and just make a conversion of this? Because if we don't do anything fancy, we have to deal with the proration rules, and that's a mess, and it doesn't really help you that much. So how do we separate the coffee and the cream? Well, what if we set up our own one-person 401k plan? Okay? So I talked to somebody over the break. Yes, you need some earned income. So now we have our own one-person 401k plan. But we have a specialized 401k plan. It's a very snooty 401k plan. And the snooty 401k plan says we will not accept after-tax dollars into our pure pre-tax 401k. So you say, okay, I'm going to take all the pre-tax, that goes to a 401k. Well, we really haven't done anything, have we? It's a different form of money, but it still has minimum required distributions, and it's basically the same old rules. Now, what are we left with? Our IRA has only after-tax dollars. Now we convert that at no tax. We have effectively taken the cream out of the combined coffee and cream, made a tax-free conversion of that money. What was your cost? 0. All right? Now, it works very well. I'll tell you it works well for people who have non-deductible IRAs and people who in the old days saw the benefit of maxing out their 401k even over and above the amount that you were allowed to deduct. And frankly, I run into a lot of those type of folks. Okay, so graphically, it looks like pre-tax and after-tax. The pre-tax, I call it an employer-qualified plan, which is technically what a 401k is, and then we end up with a Roth. Hardly anybody does that. We've been doing it, I don't know, I guess for 20 years.
Basically, you want to carve up all of your traditional IRS that have the combined pre-tax and after-tax dollars and get all of the pre-tax out.
That's right. That's right. So guess what? Kathy thought she was retired. We're going to put her back to work. Because you could do this, Kathy. Actually, you can, it's easier for you because you can go back, where'd it go? You can go back to 2014-54. At retirement, you can direct your employer to take the after tax and go right into a Roth. This technique that I'm talking about is if it's too late to do that. And that's where a lot of people here are in this room. All right, very, very cool stuff. All right, now I had mentioned this before because it came out in a question. And the question was, well, am I allowed to die with an IRA? And the reason I don't want to do a conversion is I'm at this bracket, my kid is at this bracket. How about if I die with a 401k and have or an IRA, and then have my kid convert at their rate? Well, that would be pretty cool, right? Well, it's not so cool because you're dead, but it would still be a good strategy, all right? But you're not allowed to do that with an IRA. Well, you are allowed to do it with a 401k plan. And remember, we want our own, in most situations, we want our own 401k that we can control, and we can control the investments, and it has the right rules inside the 401k to do what I want to do to save taxes for you both while you're alive and after you're gone. And see, unfortunately, most advisors, they're so anxious to manage the money that they want to hurry up and get you from your IRA, from your 401k to an IRA, and they ignore the after tax. Sometimes it's lost forever. They sometimes ignore or don't do the NUA, which I'm not going to get into, and that's why you want to work with a true fiduciary. And by the way, Erica did mention that Joe Wilson is here from one of the firms that we work with that does the investments. And I didn't ask him to raise his hand, but you might want to raise your hand. Are you available for questions during the break and afterwards? Okay. So we do the strategy. We have other firms actually do the investments. All right. All right. He's with JFS. That is one of our partners. We have a number of them, but and they do everything the way I like, and frankly, they use the same funds where me and my whole team's, most of our investments are. Okay, so I'm not telling you to do something radically different than what I'm doing myself for my own money. Okay, so that is a very cool technique, and it works very well if you're in a high bracket and you have a kid in a low bracket. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you go to your, let's say Kathy goes to her firm and she says, oh, by the way, does our 401k allow an inherited 401k to be converted to a Roth? You're going to get, what? Most of these people never heard of it. And to be honest, a lot of advisors never heard of it. I'd say the vast majority have never heard of it. And hardly anybody's done it. And, I've been doing work for Westinghouse engineers for probably 25 years ago. I had a Westinghouse engineer who came to one of these types of sessions, and he said, oh, you have to talk to, they have this group called SURE, which are basically these nerdy retired engineers. And by the way, if you're ever married, anybody here an engineer or, all right, anybody here married to one? Guess what? They don't change. All right, my wife's a software engineer. She's, she wants to see the numbers. And she doesn't take my word on anything, but she believes a spreadsheet. And she actually looks at the assumptions and does all the things that you'd expect an engineer to do. What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? But anyway, that's what this group is. And a lot of them have after-tax dollars. And we've done a bunch of these techniques. And it's worked beautifully. And they and their kids are going to be a lot better off. Then you can combine Roth with other ideas. So let's say that either you or maybe even one of your parents are, let's say that you have a health problem and you have to move into, some type of a facility. And maybe the facility has a big price tag up front. Let's say it's $400,000, $500,000. And a lot of times those facilities will allocate the price to medical, which is deductible, and non-medical, which is not. And some of them might be as high as 80 or 90%. Let's just use 80%. $500,000 entry fee, $400,000 tax return, $400,000 of medical expense. Well, what if you do a $400,000 conversion the same year? That's a lot better than wasting the medical expense. Or if it's not you, do you have a parent in that situation? Or let's say it's a monthly fee, or maybe sometimes both, upfront and monthly. A lot of times, I love to combine Roth conversions and other types of expense. I can't tell you how many times we have encouraged older folks to make Roth conversions. Well, what's the difference? I'm not paying any taxes now. Well, maybe you will, and certainly your kids do. So again, tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars at zero cost or maybe a little bit of cost. Does that sound like fun? Tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars at, no or little cost? To me, that's really fun. All right, I mean, I genuinely enjoy that. If you have not picked up on it, I'm a run the numbers type and like benefits, and I like that kind of stuff. I still play chess. I played chess at the college level, at high school, college, and I still play. Can't make any money at playing chess. Maybe a few people can, not at my level. But anyway, very cool strategy. Hardly anybody does it. A lot of money to be saved. Okay, and again, I'm not skipping anything here. I sometimes get ahead of the slides. By the way, I just touched on the idea of what I call generational planning. I'll tell you what I love to do. I love to know the situation of, let's say, for the people here, of your parents if they're still alive, of you and your kids, and maybe even your grandkids. Because usually most people want to optimize for the whole family unit. And sometimes I can save you more money by doing an estate plan for your parents than I can no matter what your situation is. One guy wanted to give a ton of money to a charity, way more than he could convert, because there's limitations and things like that. But his dad had a bunch of money. We have dad make the charitable contribution, which reduced what the kid would inherit. Dad made a big Roth conversion, and we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. To me, that's just fun. Now, a lot of people are very closed-mouthed about that. I have a story coming up, which we'll do in the next session. But again, I love combining Roth, and sometimes it's just simple. Okay, I'm giving, let's make up $33,000 a year to charity. Well, maybe it makes sense to do one contribution of $100,000 that will cover 3 years, and that might push you into a situation where you can do Roths and really benefit. Again, it's strategy. People spend so much time on the investments, and really, a lot of times the strategy is something that you can control, and I won't say it's 100% certain, but it's pretty certain. All right, bow. In this example, I conveniently had the $24,000 to pay the tax on the conversion. I suspect that there is at least one, if not more, people in this room. They have their $1 million plus in their IRA. They have their paid up house. They're getting their minimum required distribution. They're getting their Social Security. And maybe they would love to do a Roth conversion, but they don't have the money to pay the tax on the conversion from outside the IRA. And I already said, yeah, you can do it, but it doesn't work out very well. Because the math, in this case, is based on having some form of non-taxable money. In this case, I'm assuming you have $24,000 of after-tax dollars to pay the tax on the conversion. Well, what if you don't have it? All right? So I'm about to make half the people in the room's stomach a little bit miserable. What if you take a home equity loan? which is not taxable. You use that money to pay the taxes on a Roth IRA conversion. A lot of times, you're way better off. Now, sometimes it doesn't, and I will also admit that it depends on what the interest rate is on the loan. But a lot of times people say, oh no, because it doesn't pass the stomach test. All right? Some of you should not play poker because I can see you don't want to do this. And by the way, I'd rather you sleep well at night than optimize your retirement plan. So if some people want, then we don't even run the numbers. And then some people say, well, I don't want to do it, but why don't you run the numbers anyway? We run the numbers. Oh, my kids are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars better off if I do this. Well, then decide. My thing is run the numbers and then decide. Now, by the way, if you have this isn't going to work for people who have $400,000 total. So you're not going to hear Susie Orman recommend this strategy, or Dave, what's his name, Ramsey. Dave Ramsey. Oh, he would hate this. He says, oh, you pay your house off in retirement. And a lot of you are saying, hey, I spent 30 years paying off that GD mortgage, and you're trying to get me to go back into debt. And for lower income and lower asset folks, Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman's probably right. But for a lot of you, it might make a lot of sense. So again, it's math. And by the way, we can run the numbers. Oh, Jim, you used 6%. I think it's only going to be 4%. Okay, use 4%. Oh, Jim, you assume the taxes are going to go the same. What if they go up? And I go, oh, good. That's going to even help the Roth. Well, what if it's going to go down? Nobody said that. But anyway, run the numbers, then make the decision. Because it does often pass the math test, but it might fail the stomach test. All right, here's another one, combining things, is when to take Social Security and Roth conversions. All right, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Social Security, but if you hold off on your Social Security, so let's say that Kathy, she's certainly not 66 if you look at her, but let's just say that she's 66, and let's say it's next year and she's retired. Should she take her Social Security? Well, and should she make a Roth conversion after she's retired? Are those two separate calculations? Maybe not, because if she takes her Social Security, that increases her income, which will limit how much money she can do a Roth conversion for. So if she doesn't take her Social Security, then she could do a bigger Roth conversion in the same bracket. So they're not two independent decisions. It's what's known as a synergistic. What if she does what I want her to do without knowing more? Hold off on your Social Security, but do a Roth conversion. And, well, in this case, I'm doing it at 62. Here's the person who does the status quo. They take their Social Security early, and they don't do Roth. And they run out of money. Here's the person who does what I want, which is wait till 70 and do a series of Roth conversions. $2 million.
Why do you say series of Roth conversions?
Well, the question was, why do I do a series of Roth conversions? All right, so let's say you're 66, Kathy, you're retired, and you're smart enough to hold off on Social Security, and you have I'm just going to make up a number, $1 million in your traditional 401k or IRA. If you convert all of it, now all of a sudden you're at the highest tax bracket. All right, but what if you do a series up to a certain bracket or a lower amount? We've been doing Roth conversion analysis literally since 1998. We've done it hundreds, if not thousands. Almost inevitably, our recommendations tend to be not one huge one, but a series. Now, if you're always at the top bracket, we have people like that, then we have done multi-million-dollar Roth conversions. And that's really fun. It was more fun before the Secure Act. when the kids could stretch it. And we used to have disclaimers and went to grandkids and they stretched it. We literally created tax-free dynasties. But anyway, my point is it's synergistic, and holding off on Social Security for the primary wage earner and doing a series of Roth conversions is probably a good idea in most situations. All right, here's another technique. Sometimes it might make sense to cash in a traditional IRA, don't convert to a Roth, pay the tax, you're left with after-tax dollars, you gift it to your kids, who then invest in something tax-free, like their own Roth IRA, their own Roth 401k. By the way, it's the same for life insurance, which is a tax-free vehicle. You've lowered your estate, you got money to your kids earlier, and that's the exception to the exception. So there's kind of no standard, if you will, that works in all situations. And we've been recommending, as the level of wealth increases as my career continues, we're doing more and more of those. That typically will not work at the lower income and the lower asset levels. Again, you pay tax on the withdrawal. What's left after you pay the tax, you gift to your kids invest it in something tax-free. By the way, a 529 plan is another great example. I forgot that. 529 plan is a little bit like a Roth, grows tax-free. Kathy.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. How do you get from traditional money to 529? I think that was listed.
All right, so Kathy wants to buff up, well, I have to assume that that's for grandkids. It's not. Oh, okay, cool. I'm sorry about that. Oh, I went the wrong way. Oh, man. I'm really sorry about that. All right, so she has a late bloomer kid who still wants to go to college, and she's interested in funding a 529 plan. And maybe in your situation, it might make sense for you to take some money out of your IRA or your 401k now while you're still working, pay the tax on it, but you gotta, you're, oh wait, no, you should still wait till retirement, sorry. But anyway, take some money out of a IRA, 401k, pay tax on it, then with what's left, you transfer to a 529 plan.
You can't go directly to a 529?
You can go directly from a Roth IRA to a 529 plan for a little bit, but that's an exception to the exception to the exception. Don't count on that one. Okay, and again, 529 plans, and I assumed grandchildren, but you see what happens when you make that assumption, right? You make an well, you know what it means. All right, and life insurance, by the way, subject to exception, is a tax-free investment. But your kids use it for something, like a Roth, a 401k, a 529, et cetera. Health savings accounts, by the way. Health savings accounts are better than Roth. They're better than IRAs. They're wonderful for anybody who's still working or could set up their own health savings account. You get a deduction going in, and assuming you take the money out for medical use, the growth is income tax free. So that's better than an IRA. So it's like an IRA where you get a deduction going in, but it's better because when you take it out, it's not taxable. It's better than a Roth because even though you don't get a tax deduction on the Roth, because you do get a tax deduction on the HSAs. So HSAs are wonderful. The only problem is, A, there's pretty severe limits on how much money you can put in, and B, your investment choices are typically more limited. But in terms of, does it make sense from taxes? Absolutely. Okay, so, and by the way, are there any questions up to now? Because I was a little bit stingy because I didn't want to run over, which I'm going to run over a little bit anyway, but that's okay.
Well, point of life insurance doesn't matter if it's...
Wait, which bullet point?
One back, please.
More back?
After-tax money into life insurance there. Does it matter if it's term or whole life?
The question is, does it matter if it's term or I don't like whole life. Let's just call it permanent. Okay. No, it's the same thing. The problem with term is great when you are young, all right? Because when you're young, you have so many good competing uses for your money. You're interested in building up your kids' college funds, you're interested in your own retirement plan, and somebody comes along and say, hey, buy this expensive whole life policy that's a lot of money up front. That's hard. All right. If you say, hey, buy cheap term, at least you're covered if you're the income earner. You're not using it as an investment, you're using it as a protection, then it's great. When you're older, does term make as much sense? Maybe not, because you're very likely to survive the term, in which case you paid a lot of money for protection that maybe you didn't need. All right, I'm a big believer, you have to protect you and your spouse, and if there's not enough money, maybe even your kids. So I'm a big believer in term, but I believe I like multiple terms. Like get so much for 10 years, so much for 20 years, so much for 30 years, because presumably every year you're funding your 401k and the need for insurance goes down. So with term, I'm more interested not so much as an investment, but for protection. When you're older, and I'm not a whole life because I'm cheap, but there are permanent policies and they are subject to exception, it's tax-free. So sometimes it makes sense to cash in an IRA and then use that money to pay for an insurance policy. All right. Most of my clients can't stand insurance, and I get it. And I'm not going to try to, I would say I have more clients with more money with the least insurance of anybody that I can think of. And not because I don't believe in it, I just don't push anybody to do what they really don't want. Okay. So one of the things that we like to do is we like to run the numbers. And we like to say, well, what if you do this? What if you don't do that? So I just thought I would give you an example. And I'm going to not do any of the sophisticated things that we used. And there's a million other strategies that we can employ other than this example. But I'm going to assume, and I'm not going to go through them, but you have some after-tax dollars, you have some IRA dollars. We're assuming that you're going to die at 90. We're assuming your kid inherits at 60. We want to adjust for inflation. And you're spending $120,000. And what if you do the status quo? I'm not going to have you take, even the status quo, I'm still going to have you wait till full retirement to take your Social Security. So I'm not going to, the status quo is not a moron. They're doing something that's reasonable. You're working, I'm still going to have the status quo max out the 401k plan, because that's smart, okay? But we're not going to make any more Roth conversions, okay? So again, nothing stupid. But, okay, now we're going to run the numbers. Okay, we want you to wait till 70 for the person with the higher earnings record to collect their Social Security. By the way, we're going to talk more about that later. Instead of putting $30,000 into a traditional 401k, we're going to put it into a Roth. Then we're going to do 3 years of backdoor Roth IRA conversions. Very, very cool, which I don't have time to talk about. I've been doing them personally for years. Then we're going to run the numbers, and in this particular case, it made sense to do $50,000 for some years, $100,000 for some years, $200,000 for other years, depending on the situation. And by the way, that's always going to change for practically each person. So let's run this out for not just for you, but for your kids, and put it in today's dollars. Just doing those simple things, that's a $3.7 million in today's dollars difference over the life of your kids. See, these strategies, they make a huge, huge difference. And this is something that you can control, unlike the market.
Allow me to ask you some important questions. Do you want to protect yourself and your family from massive income tax acceleration? Are you at least slightly concerned that future income and other tax increases will unnecessarily decimate your hard-earned savings and threaten the financial legacy you plan to pass on to your children and grandchildren? Are you willing to take action and defend yourself from government confiscation of your hard-earned money? Are you ready to take proactive steps that could help you and your heirs get the most out of what you've got? If you answered yes, this short video could be the most important thing you have ever watched. Imagine you could wave a magic wand and have a rock-solid financial master plan that has all your financial affairs in order. Think about how you would feel if you never had to worry about money because you had solid data that allowed you to make informed financial decisions, not guesses. How much better would you sleep at night knowing your financial master plan is in place? I'm going to share with you how you can make that happen. But first, let's talk about why it's so crucial to develop and implement your holistic, long-term retirement and estate plan. First, thanks to the sunsetting of the rates set by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it's likely that your current income taxes will go up in 2026. But even if legislation is passed to enshrine the current rates before they expire, raising income tax rates isn't the only way to raise taxes. Jim Lang predicted the death of the Stretch IRA and advocated defenses against it more than 5 years before the Secure Act became law. Jim had the foresight that almost no other retirement and estate planning experts did. He understood that the end of the preferential tax treatment of inherited IRAs and retirement plans wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. Now Jim predicts higher capital gains tax rates, changes to federal tax exemptions, elimination of step-up in basis rules, and estate tax increases. Congress pulled a bait and switch on you, and it was just plain wrong. You were promised that contributions to your IRAs and retirement plans would pass to your heirs with significant tax advantages. Remember the Stretch IRA? Because you were fiscally responsible, you acted on that promise. You sacrificed so you could put as much money as you could into your retirement plans. Then, late in the game, Congress pulled the rug out from under you by passing the Secure Act. The consequence of Congress's actions with the Secure Act? A massive income tax acceleration on money you thought was protected. But there is a way for you to fight back and protect your wealth from the Congress's greedy hands. We can offer you the means and the tools to pull back some of that money. There is no single strategy that will solve all these problems and ensure your future financial security. Nor is there a one-size-fits-all combination of strategies that is right for everyone. But Jim and his team will help you find the right combination for you and your family. Here are just a few of the strategies in Jim's arsenal. A series of timely Roth IRA conversions to be executed over a number of years. Social Security optimization. Lifetime safe spending analysis. Spend the right money first analysis. Appropriate asset location analysis. Estate plan evaluation. Lifetime and testamentary gifting strategy, including leveraging lifetime gifts to children and grandchildren, and our tax-savvy Who Gets What estate planning analysis. And all of these will be adapted to your unique situation and calibrated to provide the best results for you and your family. The choice to develop your financial master plan is not a choice to maintain the status quo. It's a proactive choice to improve upon the status quo and secure the future you dream of for yourself and your family. When you meet with Jim, he may propose implementing the superbly flexible Lang's Cascading Beneficiary Plan. Its flexibility protects your spouse, allows for the possibility of directing money to your children after the first death, and allows for the possibility of directing money to your grandchildren with parents as trustees. These options are not available with traditional planning. Lang's Cascading Beneficiary Plan is really an estate planning system that should be considered for virtually all of your assets. It works for wills and revocable trusts, IRAs and retirement plans, Roth IRAs, and Lang's Cascading Beneficiary Plan is only one tool in Jim's arsenal. The first step toward peace of mind and a good night's sleep is to request a RetireSecure consultation with Jim Lang. During your 1-hour private Zoom consultation with Jim and one of his number-crunching CPAs, you'll discover how to cut your taxes and preserve your wealth. Jim will answer all your questions and concerns and likely suggest 2 or more tax-reducing strategies you had not thought about. Jim takes a multidisciplinary approach to securing your retirement. He accounts for taxes, legal, and investments. Jim has given thousands of consultations over the years and has never had anyone say or even imply that it wasn't worth their time. Why? Because Jim delivers real-world value and not a sales pitch. At the end of your RetireSecure consultation, you will have the outline for a concrete plan of action to maximize your retirement prosperity and generational wealth. Then you will have 3 options. You will thank Jim for his time and valuable recommendations and most likely end up doing nothing. You'll want Jim and his team to run full retirement and estate planning projections, producing your personalized financial master plan for a one-time investment of between $12,500 and $22,500, depending on the complexity of your situation. Or you'll want your personal financial master plan, and you'll want Jim's team to help you implement the plan, and have one of Jim's strategic partners manage at least a portion of your assets. If you select option 3, your personal financial master plan is included for free, and your personal financial master plan will be updated every year at no additional cost, provided you place a minimum of $2 million under management. A no-obligation RetireSecure consultation will likely provide you with at least one idea worth 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can get it now for free, without obligation. The purpose of the RetireSecure consultation isn't to sell you. It is to determine if you are the right fit to work with Jim and his team. Please note that Jim will not take you on as a client unless he thinks he can save you and your family many times his fee. Jim only has a limited number of slots available for the free RetireSecure consultation before there is a waiting list. Since Jim personally conducts each consultation, and there are hundreds of attendees on this virtual event, Jim will almost certainly not have enough available appointments to meet demand. In addition, Jim's team will likely not have sufficient time to meet demand for financial master plan development. Developing each financial master plan is a time and labor-intensive process, and with ongoing obligations to existing clients, Jim and his CPAs only have so much capacity to take on new clients. So, to secure your free RetireSecure consultation with Jim Lang, click the offer link and complete the appointment request form now. Listen, with the uncertainty in the country, it's natural to be concerned about your financial future. But with proper planning, you can protect yourself and your family from massive taxation, get the most out of what you've got, and maximize retirement prosperity and generational wealth. And the first step is simple and free. Click on the offer link and request your RetireSecure consultation with Jim Lang. Don't wait and be disappointed. A happier, less stressful, and more abundant life awaits. Take action to secure your family's financial future now. Request your free RetireSecure consultation by clicking on the offer link.